Oh my goodness, me again. Just me. I have absolutely not a scrap of makeup on. Have my Stanley here. Well, it's not a Stanley, it's a Stanley dupe. I've worked from home today. This is my work from home attire. I'm solo. Welcome or welcome back to... I think I've got dirty glasses. Oh my goodness, I'm falling apart. Can you tell that the channel's falling apart? Slice, I need you back. Welcome or welcome back to Petite Perspective. This week's... I'm Georgia. There's normally two of us. Elise is in Mexico. I'll see if she'll send me a picture and I can insert her picture of Elise in Mexico. Welcome back to Petite Perspective. Okay. So, for today, I thought that I would just sit down and talk through Romantasy books, because I saw that Elise did her like thriller recommendations, books that she recommends for like people who enjoy thrillers. So I thought that I would do my alternative for my forte, which is Romantasy books. I have really high, just to give you some of my credentials, I have really high standards for Romantasy books. I like what I like, I dislike what I dislike, and I'm obviously going to explain a bit about what I do like and what I don't like. But I really got into reading Romantasy probably like a year ago, maybe even more. Might have been like about a year ago now. I really got into reading Romantasy books, and Romantasy is romance and fantasy. So I thought that we could just have a chat, really chilled one this week, and just go through some book recs. Some of these I've read, some of these I haven't read yet, some of these I'm really looking forward to reading. Yeah, so I thought let's just chat all things Romantasy vibes. This first book was just over there collecting dust, so I'm about to say that I love it, but it doesn't look like I do because it's so dusty. Okay, so let's start with a book that is rather on the, I'd say it's both actually. I was about to say it's really heavy on the fantasy side, but it is also romance. So, I mean, there is a lot of romance in there. I would say maybe like two chilies, two little chili emojis for spice. I rated this series, I think I rated the first book 5 out of 5, and I rated maybe the second like 3 or 4 because it kind of went on a little bit. Obviously, I'm talking about Iron Flame. This is the cover for this. Iron Flame and Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I think this is I wouldn't start with this book if I was just getting into fantasy. Because I feel like it is quite heavy on the world building. I would say like maybe 3 out of 5 for the world building, because it is quite confusing. It's about dragons, and she goes to, this main girl's called Violet, and she goes to a dragon school, and obviously everyone and their mum has read this book. This is not groundbreaking stuff, but yeah, this I would say is a bit more advanced on the fantasy side. This is the second book. It's huge. I think there's going to be like 5 books. Does there need to be that many? But that's a story for another day. But this is a fantastic book if you are into sort of, there's obviously, so it's Violet and Xaden are the romance element. Yeah, and Violet and Xaden are romance. There's like the fantasy of like the war college, which is very different to anything I've ever read before. So I did really enjoy this. I just think, could we have just got like 2 or 3 fantastic books rather than 5 or 6 mediocre? I don't know, maybe that's an unpopular opinion, but I like my series I'd rather have like good books and not as many of them than like go on and have like 7 books, like the Shatter Me series, but we'll come into that one, and then kind of be mediocre. So that was my first little rec. Obviously, everyone knows about Iron Flame and Fourth Wing, but it is a good book, and it does deserve the hype that it gets. I know she's a problematic author though. So the next book, I thought I'd level the playing field by telling you a book that I'm not overly keen on in my fantasy romantasy era. I'm ready for the booze. This is such an unpopular opinion. Like, everyone loves this book, and I really hate the fact that I didn't love it. But for me, personally, there was nothing original in this book. In terms of, it all felt done before. I know it was, like, inspired by the Hunger Games. It's like, the Hunger Games meets, I can't think what one of the reviews was, and that's fine if you're going to have like an inspired book, but it just, I think sometimes in fantasy it's like the rebellion, the rebels, the uprising, the a 19-year-old girl saving the world, like it can kind of get a bit tedious, which I think is why I quite liked this one, because it was different with the dragons. Yeah, to me, this was, I know people love this book, and like, I love that for you. I'm not shitting on this book or the author or anything. I'm just saying, for me, it just wasn't it. It just wasn't it. It didn't hit the way that it should have hit. Because to me, it was kind of all done and all had been done, and there was nothing super like special or niche. My stomach just made like a really not very good noise just then. I'm gonna grab the next two books. I'm gonna go in order of books I like, books I don't like, books I like, books I don't like, until I run out. So the next book, obviously, fantasy vibes, romantasy vibes. I would say this is quite heavy world building as well, so this is, but then I'd say that this is more like a beginner fantasy book, and also I don't think I have it on my shelf, but The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber is great for like a beginner fantasy book. But this is obviously Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. This is actually the first ever fantasy book that I ever read, and then obviously I went on to read the series, but I felt like this is a really good introduction to fantasy books if like you're after just a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of romance. Like the world building obviously gets and like the politics and stuff get quite intense in this book and in the second book, but for that's in the wrong order. Oh no, they're on my shelf in the wrong order. Yeah, but for the most part, it is quite sort of light-hearted. Well, not light-hearted, but it's quite easy to follow, which I really liked. This was my first ever fantasy book. Next up, we have. This isn't the first book. This is maybe the third book. I haven't read it yet. It's been on my shelf for years. No, not years. This is the series, so you guys can see the first and second book, what they look like. The Red Queen is the first book. Glass Sword is the second book. And then there's like a mini novella in between, which pointless. And then obviously this is the third book. And then there's 4 books. I think there might be 5 books actually in this one. But this is by Victoria Aveyard, and it is the Red Queen series. Now, I was obsessed. This was maybe the second fantasy book that I ever read. So I think ACOTAR was the first, and then it was this one. I was obsessed with the Red Queen because it was genuinely like something I've never read before. Again, it kind of had like Hunger Games. I think the Hunger Games is like the OG, and then all of these books obviously like take inspiration from that. It had like Hunger Games vibes, which I love the Hunger Games films and the Hunger Games books. I'm rereading them all. But it was just so original, like the princes, the castle, like, it was just fantastic. I really remember loving that book. But then as I kind of kept reading, I don't know if it's because I'd overdone fantasy too much. Like I'm actually currently on like a romance hype, and I'm avoiding all fantasy books because it all felt so samey to me. So I don't know if it's because when I read that I was kind of like, I hit fantasy hard at one point in my reading career. I was like, fantasy. It kind of got like too much. So I don't know if it's that, but maybe if I pick up book 3 and hate it, then I will DNF it. But yeah, I didn't love this series. I did love book 1, but I just was a little bit let down by the rest of the series. But I suppose if you're into sort of like if you like this, then you'll definitely like this, because it's basically the same freaking plot. That was my like sorry, sue me. Actually, maybe I won't say that it's the same plot. It's very different. It's the same plot. It's the same plot, and that's fine. But sometimes you don't want to read the same plot. Yeah, sorry. So that was the Red Queen, which I couldn't get into. Oh, is this just going to be a book of me slandering all the books that I couldn't get into? So let's talk about some positives. I don't actually have the book with me, but I'll put a little up here. The next, it's 2 books. Fantastic. Duology. Done. She didn't go on. She didn't drag me through 8 books of mediocreness. She got it done. And it is One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillick. I think her name is Rachel Gillick. I'll put a thingy on the screen here. And this follows Elsbeth, who is Elsbeth Spindle, who is like infected, and she kind of has these powers in this world where if you are found to have these powers, then you're killed. And she kind of gets involved with the high society in this, and like the kings in this world. It's got like its own magic system. It is fantastic. And I remember reading it and thinking, oh my good God, this is how fantasy is done. Romance was like a subplot, but it wasn't like too much. It wasn't too much romance. I don't think there's any like saucy scenes. I don't think there's any spice in it. 2 books. She did it. She's just done. She's just dropped that, and then just chef's kiss, Rachel. Chef's kiss. That is how you do fantasy. The world building was phenomenal. The magic system was 10 out of 10. Adding Elm's point of view in the second book, sign me up. Honestly, beautifully written. Absolutely love those books. If you want a fantasy recommendation, I would say those books. 10 out of 10. The magic system is a little bit confusing. So is it like a first fantasy reader type of book? No, I would still say stick to. But I think if you kind of read a few fantasy books, everything's feeling a little bit samey to you, I would 10 out of 10 recommend One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. You read One Dark Window first, then you go on to Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillick. Phenomenal books. Next one is probably going to get me, again, unpopular opinion. And I'm really sad about these ones that I didn't like, by the way. I'm not bashing them because I'm sad because I really wanted to like these ones. I think I've DNF'd Serpent and Wings of Night. And one of my friends at work, who we normally like the same books, was like, this is such a good series, you should read it. And I literally got 78 pages in. So maybe I haven't given this like enough time to like marinate with me, and I might try it again, but I just can't see myself ever reaching for this again, which is really sad because I bought like the whole like full-blown hardback, but maybe I'll have to sell it. But yeah, I can't see myself reaching. I wasn't immediately gripped. I wasn't immediately like, oh, it again, samey. Ooh, I know this is really unpopular opinion, but for me this just wasn't it. Sorry. Okay, let's go on to nicer things. Let's talk about another. This is kind of like dystopian-y, but I want to talk about it anyway because she deserves a mention. It is The Grace Year. I don't know who it's by. I'll find that out. But it is, I read it on my Kindle and I downloaded it on my Kindle and just thought it was going to be like let's just pick it up. So it's dystopian. It's not fantasy. It's set in like a different world. It gives like Handmaid's Tale vibes. Set in a different world. All these girls, like before they have to basically, they live in a society where when you get to a certain age and you're female, you have to go into the woods with all like other girls your age to like expel your magic. And this whole thing happens, but like it's all about these teenage girls who go and then they have to like survive and they all like turn on. It's just complete and utter like Handmaid's Tale vibes. It is next level, like crazy, but it is a fantastic book, a fantastic book, and I would recommend it. But again, it's more dystopian. It's not fantasy. There's like no real romance in it. But yeah, that is The Grace Year. Sippy sip break. I'm talking too much. I've forgotten what one I was going to do first because of the order of good or bad. Anyway, let's do this one next. This isn't Romantasy. Well, no, this is set in like ancient Greece. It's not like a fantasy world. It's just like they're gods, you know, like the Greek gods. And I did not think I was going to like this because, as I say, I am like quite a, like, this is me all over this book. This is like called me dumb in about 8 different ways. One evening when I was reading this, I was like, what are these names? What are these? I was like, I'm going to believe me. Like, the names were just mind blown. But it was a fantastic read, and I think everyone should read it at some point. I'm giving this to Elise. I'm just going to say, look, stick with it, because it is such a beautifully written story about young love and about like overcoming everything. And then it's set in like Greece, and they're like the sons of gods, and you have that sort of fantasy element to it. And there's a reason that this gets all the hype it gets. And the guy in the bookshop when I bought this told me to read Circe next, by the same author, Madeline Miller. Madeline? Yeah. And yeah, I'm going to, because I really, really did enjoy this. And this is kind of fantasy, I'd say, and definitely romance in there. It's about Achilles and Patroclus, and they're basically like Patroclus gets exiled, and yeah, that says that on the back, and then sent to where Achilles is, and it's like this like all boys school, and then they meet and things happen and they have to go on an adventure, and it's really good. Yeah, it is a good book. Sorry about that, I don't know what that little sing-song was, but yeah, it's really good. Ending on a negative, which is not very good, but I just couldn't get into this. I could not get into this. This is Bride by Ali Hazelwood, which again is fantasy, werewolf, vampire type fantasy. Maybe it's the vampire aspect of fantasy that I can't get into. But yeah, I couldn't get into this. I really wanted to like it. I really want to like Ali Hazelwood's books. I keep picking them up, thinking one day I'm going to read one of these. I'm just going to hit. I'm like, every time she writes it, have I got an eyelash? Oh no. Every time she writes a book, I'm like, this is going to be the one, guys. This is going to be the one for me. And it never is. I've started like every single book of hers and just DNF'd. But this was Bride by Ali Hazelwood. It's about a werewolf and a vampire who have to get married in a forced marriage. Anyway, so those are kind of a few of my... I also have this one, but I haven't read it yet. I might start this next. It's basically about like Hunger Games type vibes, like a trial, and there's like there's a girl who has to save the world. Also, the thing I love about fantasy books, obviously, is how beautiful like they all are, with the maps and the like beautiful detailing. Like Powerless even has that beautiful front. Obviously, like Iron Flame is just stunning. I got like a map at the front of a book. I'm like, oh, woohoo! Can't wait to get on this ride. Yeah. So these are just a few of my little fantasy recommendations. Sorry this video was really quick and I look like this, but I am holding down this whole fort. Ooh, gold now. Holding down this whole fort by myself these past few weeks. So if the videos are uploaded late and I look a mess, then please blame Elise. No, I'm joking. She's fine. Everyone deserves a holiday. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Let me know your fantasy recommendations in the comments, please, because I need some good recs. Please, I need some good recs. Hook me up. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to read, because I'm struggling out here to find any good. As I say, I'm reading romance at the minute, because fantasy books, I keep starting them and then not finishing them, because I'm just like, none of you are hitting the way that you should be. So yeah, let me know and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye. Thank you for watching. Mwah.